Hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm going to introduce you to Jason Reid, a partner at CEO Coaching International, where he coaches CEOs on how to be successful. But he isn't here to talk about that. Our topic today is how to prevent teen suicide. You see, a week after his son Ryan's 14th birthday, Jay's son took his own life. Here to talk about that, his experiences, and his mission to end teen suicide by 2030 is Jay Reid. Welcome to the program, Jay.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me here today.
Jay, I always have my guests start off by answering one question, which is, tell me, where does your story begin? So where does your story begin, Jay?
Well, unfortunately, my story begins on March 21st, 4 years ago this March, where my wife and I were celebrating her birthday, and we got a text from our son, right, saying, "I love you and goodbye." We were in Mexico at the time. He had it all planned so that, there's nothing we could do. My mother-in-law was in the house with my son Kyle, and they found him, and then the police came, and the ambulances. That's right. And then we had 5 days in the hospital with him until he finally passed. So I always think it's going to get easier telling this, but it never is. So the thing to keep in mind about all this is that I didn't understand what he was going through, and I didn't see it. I thought he was a grumpy teenager. I had 3 others. I thought they were grumpier. He hid it from us, or I didn't know, and I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know the signs. I've never been a guy who's been depressed myself. My wife doesn't suffer from depression, and so we just didn't think about it. But meanwhile, Ryan was suffering quietly to himself and hiding it. So after that happened, I realized that I didn't want his death to be in vain, and I wanted to spend my time trying to figure all of this out. So I am that guy, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I built businesses. I coach CEOs. I get stuff done. And I looked at this and said, what can I do? So I formed an organization called ChooseLife.org, which is not lost on me now that was the old anti-abortion site back in the day. Didn't realize it when I paid the $10,000 for the site, didn't realize why they wanted $10,000 for the site. I just thought that's what I wanted people to do, was to choose life. And I decided to keep it and remarket it as something different. I did a TEDx talk right out of the gate. Within 6 months, I created a movie called Tell My Story, which is Ryan's words to me in a sticky note.
And as you went through that journey of sort of processing, the loss of Ryan, and wanting to be a resource for other parents, so that they don't find themselves in the situation that your family found itself in. What did you learn? What did you learn about the contributing factors to teen suicide?
Well, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. During the process of doing the movie, the TEDx talks, the goal, all the stuff I've done, talking to parents and talking to kids, I realized that there's a lot more of it out there than I thought. And if we move this whole conversation, Mike, away from teen suicide, because the chances of your child dying of suicide, you're right, it's probably not going to happen. Right? It's 7,000 kids, depending on what the data comes out with the newest. It's on the rise every year, right? It's the highest it's ever been. But the chance of having your child, probably not going to happen. But here's a scary stat. 30 to 40% of kids out there are suffering from depression and anxiety. And that's a precursor to suicide. Those 30 to 40% of kids, that's no way to live, right? Constantly upset, stressed, sad. And 85% of those kids are undiagnosed. And it's been worse since the pandemic, a lot worse. You can see it yourselves and your kids, right? They've been locked up in their rooms. They have to wear masks when they go to school. And I'm not an anti-COVID guy. I believe that COVID's a bad thing and it does exist. And I believe that we have to get vaccinated, and we have to wear masks. To your viewers who don't believe that, I respect your choices. I don't agree with them. But it's harming our kids. There's no doubt that all of this lockdown and lockup, whatever you want to call it, has had taken a toll on our kids. It's taken a toll on all of us. And mental health issues and stress as an all-time high.
So am I right in believing it was sort of heading in the wrong direction? I mean, even before the pandemic, in terms of, depression, anxiety being on the rise, amongst everybody, but specifically amongst teens.
Well, if you think about it, Mike, I'm 54 years old. And when I grew up, none of this stuff existed the way it does now, right? So when the phone rang at my house, my father answered it when I was 14. And he decided if we were able to talk to the person, right? That was his call. And how long we were allowed to talk for. There was 3 TV channels, if there was even that. There was no world news, CNN 24 hours a day. I didn't watch the news. I was 14. I played with my friends. I didn't read the paper. I was 14. 14-year-olds didn't read the paper back then. So I had no idea what was going on, right? There was no social media. There were no computers. There was nothing. Kids were kids. If you were on a sports team, you're on a sports team, but you weren't on a travel team and a sports team. Maybe some of the hockey guys were, because I grew up in Canada. But it wasn't the same pressure. The phone never rings over there. Anyways, wasn't the same pressure. It was all kids were kids, right? We all just played. I'm probably older than you are, but you probably get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Oh, right? Sure. And by the way, I thought your dad was going to answer that phone when it was ringing before. That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah. So you take a look now, and we didn't worry about getting into college. And we didn't worry about how much it cost, because it wasn't that expensive. And you didn't have to have a scholarship. And you didn't have to have a 4.0 to get to a UC school in California, for example. Whereas now you have to have a 4.2, 4.4, whatever you have, right? So there's so much added pressure on kids now than there was. It's very clear to me how we got here. Because the same brain that these kids have at 14, I had at 14. And I can't even imagine having to deal with all the pressure they have. And we're not even getting into the fact that, the social media pressure behind being on Instagram, being on Facebook, always trying to look your best. That's really where we're at. When you think about what's going on, it's like kids are under a whole bunch of pressure. And by the way, I'm not blaming parents. It's not about that. Kids put a lot of pressure on themselves. You're constantly hearing about kids who have to have the best grades, have to be on top of this, have to do this. We're in a different time.
Yeah.
So am I making any sense?
A total sense. I mean, it brings me to, I started my career in interactive marketing when that was just a new thing, right? We used to call it new media. And, we were building these technologies that were, built on the information superhighway. And boy, wouldn't it be great if people are informed about everything kind of going on in the world at the push of a button or the view of a screen. During this time, the 24-hour news cycle became a thing. There were, 24-hour cable news networks popping up. MSNBC becomes a thing. Joining, media with technology, and I can't help but wonder if that was all just one big giant mistake. In terms of, maybe the intention was positive, but the outcome, certainly not so much.
Well, even as an adult, right? So you think about it, if I asked you right now, here we are sitting in a world where Russia might invade the Ukraine. Have you thought about that lately?
Mm-hmm.
Have you wondered what that's going to mean to the world? Probably have, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And we can process that and go, okay, well, what's going to happen? What's that going to mean? If I'm a 12-year-old kid right now and I'm saying Russia's going to invade the Ukraine, and what does that mean? It's all over the news, and what does that mean? And then there's climate change, and oh my gosh, COVID's going to get us. The anxiety levels are just like, I don't know, they're just rising.
Right. And, part of it, it's well, not part of it, but it's not lost on me that, things like controversy and bad news and fear just mean more eyeballs for different media outlets. So if they want to have more stickiness, to their social media, to their blogs or whatever, you're not looking at good news. You're looking at news that's gonna instill a little bit of fear in you. That's what I see anyway.
No, I don't disagree with you. And so as adults, we have a hard time dealing with it. Our kids are even more challenged with it. So this gets to, so we all kind of understand like how we're kind of here, right? This is the spot.
Yeah.
The more important conversation, what do you do about this whole situation? Like how can you help your kids? How can you help each other? One of the main things that I've learned out of this whole thing is I don't suffer from depression, is when I'm trying to explain it to people now, because there's a lot of people I talk to who don't understand it either. And I say, look, I live in Southern California. Right now, sorry about the rest of you, but there's not a cloud in the sky, right? It's just sunny degrees outside. And yes, it's February 3rd or whatever, or February 7th. And if I was sitting here with someone who's depressed, all they're going to see in that sky is clouds. And there's nothing I can say that's going to change their mind and convince them there's no clouds, because that's all they see. Nothing I can say is going to change that. And if I try to change it, if I try to tell them, look, there's no clouds up there, you're wrong, all they're going to do is shut down and not talk to me. And that's the worst thing that can happen when you're dealing with somebody who's depressed. All I can do is say, tell me about your clouds, and get them to talk about them. Why do they exist? What do they look like? How do they make you feel? Do your clouds ever go away? Do they come back? What makes them come back? All you can do is ask questions and get them to talk.
Yeah.
And explain it to you.
Right.
You can't try to fix someone who's depressed.
Right. I mean, trying to convince someone not to see the clouds and to see the sun or the blue sky, it's pretty much invalidating their experiences. And it's the key to getting them not to open up to you, kind of going forward.
And it's so counter to who we are parents, right? Because when they're sad and they say, I broke up with my boyfriend, my girlfriend, I don't feel like it's worth being here anymore. We're like, what are you talking about? You're 12, you're 13, you're 14, you're 22. There's so many other people out there. You're such a wonderful human being. You can't think that way. We want to save them. We want to protect them. And the unfortunate thing that I learned is and by the way, I probably did the same thing to Ryan, right? I can't remember specific things, but I'm sure I said to Ryan, hey, why are you so grumpy today? Look around, right? Do you see where you live? Do you see how you live? Do you see how other people live? Do I have to take you down to Mexico and see what it's really like to have a tough life? I'm sure I said that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But to him or to someone depressed, all they see is that the life they're leading is terrible in their mind. And when you try to fix them, you drive them away. What I've learned, and I started off with chooselife.org, is the whole idea that there was different ways to solve this whole problem. And we're trying to raise awareness. Well, everybody's aware. So that problem is, we checked that box. Everybody's aware that suicide exists. Congratulations, everybody. But it's moving in the wrong direction regardless. Now, maybe it would have been worse, but it's still bad. If we're going to end it, if we're going to get, and when I say end it, bring it back to where it was when I was a kid, where the numbers were so small, it was not something we really talked about, right? It's so different now. If we're going to do that, we can't rely on the schools. We can't rely on the doctors. We can't rely on the government. We have to, and we can't rely on therapists because there are not enough of them. Parents have to own their kids' mental health themselves, the way we own our kids' physical health. That's the only way we're going to do this. Does that make sense?
It does. So how do you own, parent to parent, how do you help, take ownership of your children's mental health?
Well, when you think about it, if your child has a stomach ache and they have a pain, what do? You ask questions.
Right.
Why does it hurt? When does it hurt? Where does it hurt? Tell me what it feels like. You think about things. You think, what did you eat last? Okay, it looks bad. That I touched there. Let's get you to the doctor. Let's have them check you out. We own that stuff, right? Ryan had Crohn's disease. We own that. We had him in every doctor and every therapy and all that kind of stuff. We need to think about their mental health the same way. Ask them how they feel. When you think they're just being a grumpy teen, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but you have to ask, you have to find out. They have to feel like they can open up to you, that they can talk to you, that they want to talk to you. I get calls all the time. I was talking to a lady 2 weeks ago, and she called me up to tell me that her 26-year-old had attempted, or was going elsewhere, had not attempted, was going to attempt. In fact, he came to her and said, I want to go take my own life, and here's how I'm going to do it. And she said, she was freaked out, of course. She's been dealing with this for a long time with him. And she got him the doctors, they got him the hospital, they got him some more therapy, they got him what he needed. He'd gone off his medication, he had done the things, he decided he was going to try to fix this through meditation and cleaner living, which might have worked, but it didn't in this case. And she's like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what to do. I said, you did it right. He came to you. You're doing the right thing. If they're coming to you and they're talking to you, if they want to tell you they're sad, they want to tell you they're thinking about doing something bad, then you're doing it right. When they don't talk to you, that's the problem.
Right. Right. So if someone has created an atmosphere in their household of, openness, of sort of not being judgmental. I mean, are those like sort of the building blocks to sort of establishing, an environment where they can come to you and talk about this stuff, or like what else goes into sort of creating that atmosphere?
So again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy who's gone through this and spent a lot of time trying to figure it out and talk to a lot of people. I'll tell you some things that are not the right thing to do, right? When we talk about what is the right thing to do, creating an environment where you're a little more transparent with your kids, where they don't put you on a pedestal, where they know that you have bad days too. For example, I showed up the wrong way. I showed up as a guy who built these companies, who coached CEOs, who was an Ironman and a black belt and written 8 books and did all this in my life. I never told my family that I also failed at 13 companies, that I just never really talked about it. They only know about the ones I succeeded at. I never told them that, I'd almost been bankrupt 2 or 3 times. I never told my kids how scared I would be at those things. I never talked about being bullied as a kid. So I did that because as a 54-year-old guy, I thought that's what I was supposed to do to protect my family, not share any of that stuff with them, not be vulnerable with them. They should see me as I have my act together. Well, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think letting your kids know that there's good days and bad days. Now, you don't have to scare them with what's going on in your life that, hey, I think I'm gonna lose my job tomorrow. But being a little more vulnerable, let them know that, yeah, I had a sad day today. It wasn't a good day for me. I was upset about something. Right. So they can see that it's normal and it's okay to be that way, right? Ryan never saw that. So what did Ryan see? What did Ryan think? And this is only, I guess, on my part, is that it must be me. My life sucks, and my dad has his life together. Everything's always perfect for him. It must be me. Right. Therefore, there's something wrong with me. I wish I could go back and redo that.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like there's a fine line between like being a friend to your kids, and like showing that, hey, you're not perfect. So I think some parents make the mistake of just being like their kid's best friend, which I think that can lead to like sort of opposite problems as well. But then there's this, hey, my dad's Superman or my mom is Superwoman. If they can do it all, why can't I do it all? And kids with their 12, 13, 14, 18-year-old brain. I mean, I have 3 19-year-olds at home, and they've had their own struggles. But uh, I think what you're saying just strikes such a chord in me is that, hey, you're not Superman. Don't pretend to be. By just showing them. There were days that I would come home, as a self-employed individual, like having lost a project that I was up for that I thought was going to happen, where I wouldn't talk about it, but my behavior would suggest that I was very angry, or I was
Sure.
nervous about, what was going to happen in this quarter or this month. Um, but in hindsight, and I've kind of learned to do this is just kind of share more. And this is my own therapeutic process, but kind of share more of what my fears are, and that it's okay to, show that you don't have all the answers and that you're not perfect. I mean, I certainly learned that lesson, kind of going through my own journey, but
Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of us mess up on is we want to protect our kids. We want to make sure they think that everything's going to be okay. And the reality is, it's not always okay. And we need to make them a little more resilient. You're gonna break up with your girlfriend. You're gonna break up with your boyfriend. Life's gonna suck sometimes, and we give them the tools to help them through those things without trying to fix them.
right.
But the main thing is just having them. You have to be your own. You have to somewhat be your own kid's therapist. You have to be your own spouse's therapist, because you know what? There's not enough therapists out there. If you try to get therapy right now, it's hard. There's lineups. Some of the best ones are taken. They're not all great. You have to connect with somebody too, right? I mean, it's challenging. But we have to be each other's therapists. And a therapist can be as simple as someone who listens and asks questions. Because that's what a lot of it is, right? You go to a therapist, and I never knew this until I started doing it myself. They ask you questions, you talk, they ask you more questions based on what you said, and then you just talk for an hour and they didn't tell you anything. But you feel better because you talked about stuff.
Right.
You can be your own kid's therapist. Now, here's the tricky thing. It's all about timing. Because sometimes I hear, like, I've been on a podcast like this or two, and someone will go, I'm going to run right into that room and I'm going to talk to them. And they're going to tell me what's on their mind. And that doesn't work that well.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
How many times have we all ran into that room and said, you need to talk to me? And they yelled at us and they swore at us and they told us to get that out of their room and blah, 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 blah. And then we get all defensive and say, and we think, well, look, I own this house. I paid for everything in this room. Everything is mine. And you're going to talk to me because I want you to talk to me, and I'm scared I want you to talk to me. And we forget that in their world, that little space is the only thing they have. That's all they have, right? That little space, that little bit of privacy is the only thing they feel is theirs. And we all need that. We all need that little kind of place where we can cocoon.
Yeah.
So it's not the best place to talk to them. You've got to find the time. And you all know what it is, right? You all know that there's certain times when your kids are just open to talking. Right? Like you 19 kids at 19 years old, there's times each one likes to talk to you at different times, right? They're more open at different times. That's the time when you've got to capitalize on going deeper and asking more questions when they're comfortable, because being a parent's inconvenient.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, in my household anyway, there's some interesting dynamics that happen where, one of my daughters we have two girls and a boy. One of them is much more comfortable going to my wife to talk about things. And case in point, I mean, the first boyfriend breakup. That was I mean, I thought the world was ending when that happened. I mean, we all kind of felt that that sort of emotional tidal wave in the household. But so she'll go to my wife. My son will go to my wife for certain things. Then my other daughter comes to me for certain things. So I find it interesting how I guess we all have different relationships with our kids, but even within the household, the dynamics are I guess they're not exactly linear.
No, there's nothing easy about being a parent. I mean, I have, a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 19-year-old. And they're all out of the house, but apparently as of today, one's back. And he's back because he was having a challenging time. I said, you got to come home.
Yeah.
It's just, it's, there's, there's nothing easy about what we do.
No,
But
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's I tell this story when I do some public speaking events. I say, people all you often hear the phrase, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I'm like, I think there is such thing as a stupid question, because when people would come up to me and they'd hear that I have triplets, they'd ask me a stupid question, which would be something like, was it hard having triplets? And I'd say to them, um, I went from having 0 kids to 3 kids in the span of 3 minutes. And, I became a father of 3, without having had any parenting experience up until that point. There's no instruction manual that comes, when the kids are delivered. There's no test. I mean, you have to take a harder test to become a licensed driver in this country than you do to become a parent. um,
Mhm.
there's no instruction manual, and nothing anyone can ever say to you can prepare you for what you're about to undertake. The best you could have, was a good role model from your own parents or extended family. But I think that's the best we get in terms of how to be a parent.
And a lot of us didn't have those great role models as parents.
Right. Right. Fair enough.
And our parents didn't have to deal with 24-hour news cycles and all the pressure that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everything else they have to look at. And we should spend a minute or two on that. It's like, as a parent, you need to think about how, like, the genie's out of the bottle. If you gave them a phone, if they have a TikTok account, they have all these things, that's fine. I'm not saying don't. But you need to watch them. You need to talk to them. You need to educate them. You need to have conversations about what is real and what is not.
Yeah.
Because to them, all they look at all day is all their friends having great lives and thinking their lives aren't the same. All the beautiful people on Instagram, and I'm ugly. I mean, that's hard enough on adults.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we go on to, we're old, so we go on to Facebook. And it's like, I mean, I see people posting stuff on Facebook about their, let's say, spouses, right? Happy birthday to the man of my dreams. We couldn't do it without you. We love you so much. And I know for a fact that she's having an affair.
They're itches for divorce.
Like that they are both talking to attorneys, and things that they got retainers are involved. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's happening with us. I mean, and certainly with kids, their brains are still forming. What your brain isn't fully formed until you're like 25 or something like that. My wife would argue that, hey, I'm 47, my brain's not fully formed yet, but
Yeah, the same thing.
but yeah, I mean, we kind of get the difference, but our kids don't. I mean, my daughter, one of them will engage us with conversations on current events based on what she's learned on TikTok. And I'm like, Grace, where did you learn this? She's like, well, I saw it on TikTok. And I'm like, there's a good chance that that's not true. But they also see the conditioning. They see the highly targeted advertising, and they see these idyllic stories, from people they know and people they don't know. But that's all having an impact on them as well, and what their perception of the world is. And there could be some dissonance between what they're personally feeling and what they see as reality based on social media.
Well, and if you think about it, right, just the whole news in general, like, it's so hard to tell the truth anymore. What is real, what is not? I mean, for every article you want to find about how COVID has had this impact on society, there's another article saying the exact opposite, written by somebody who's supposedly an expert, right? I was like, I'm like, what? I mean, if guys like you and I struggle to figure out what the world's going through, what the hell does a 15-year-old or 20-year-old do?
Right.
And then you take a look at how hard it is and the spectrum is crazy these days, right? I get calls from parents with kids who are 10, 11, 12 that are having depression issues and attempting, and it's like, oh my God. And then you get this group of kids all the way up the spectrum. They get young adults in their 20s that are just having a real hard time because they're working from home now, and they don't have the social life they used to have, and life's not what they thought it was going to be, and the expectations on them are so high, or at least in their own mind, of how they were going to be rich by X point in time, or they missed out on the Bitcoin bubble or whatever it might be, right? But they're not. It's just living. There's so many people living in a depressed or anxious state now compared to where it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It just seems different. I mean, when you look back when you were a kid, there were sad kids, but there wasn't the level, I think. I mean, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I mean, I remember somebody I dated in high school. She had to go away for a little while. I had no idea that anything was kind of going, wrong with her. I mean, I knew she had a tough home life, but I mean, that was the exception, not the rule. Um, and part of it is, we didn't broadcast things, we didn't hear things as much as we do now, because we do have access to so many different channels of information, and we walk around with these things in our pocket that basically tell us, um, everything, all day long. Um, but no, we also had a different culture back then. I think there was, certainly, we were outside more. We did things in groups. We didn't have so much alone time. A kid these days can have everything they need for entertainment in their bedroom, um, and not have to leave the house. We had to go to the movies. We had to go to a video store. We actually had to do things, for entertainment. When we wanted to play sports, we went outside and did it. We weren't doing it on screen. Esports is something that somebody really has to explain to me, because I don't understand that as an industry. Um,
Or Twitch, that wherever you watch other people play video games.
I mean,
I
I liken it to
mean,
watching other people like go fishing. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get bored fishing. Like, but watching other people go fishing, forget about it. Watching other people play video games, I don't. I mean,
it's a thing, right?
people are
It's
making
a
money
thing.
off of it, but I don't. I don't get it. I don't get it. But the culture is so completely different from what it was when we were growing up.
But that's the world they live in, and then all that screen time and all that stuff just doesn't help.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And
Right.
but being there to have the conversation and talk about it, being
Right.
there as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, to look someone in the eye and go, "There's something off today. Tell me what's going on. You're not yourself. I want to listen." How many times do we look at people and interact with them in a day and go, "That person's sad," but I'm just gonna brush that aside because we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
We have to stop doing that, right? It's not just about kids. It's about adults. It's about our
Yeah.
friends.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Every now and then I will make a call to somebody who I haven't spoken to in a while, just to
Mhm.
see how they're doing. And this past summer, I used to run cross country in high school, and I was running. I was doing some trail running this summer at the park where we used to train. So I called a buddy of mine who I used to run with, and I said, "Hey, I just got back from Waveney, and I was thinking about you, when I was on the trails." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that you called today. I needed to hear, a friendly person's voice." And then we got into a whole long conversation of, things going on in his life, and he was facing some challenges, but just that simple act of making a phone call, like, turned his day around. And there have been times where, I know that somebody I know is having a bad day, and it takes a lot of, I don't even know if courage is the right word, but to actually go up to somebody and say, "Hey, do you need to talk?" We're not good at that as a culture, but we have to be better at that, because that could make all the difference in the world to someone's life.
Well, and I would challenge all of us that are in leadership positions. We got our salespeople together and our VPs for one of our companies in Las Vegas a week and a half ago. And I sat in the VP meeting. There's like 14 people, 15 people. And I said, You guys seem a little. I mean, you're happy because you haven't been together for 2 years, but it seems a little heavy in here. Tell me what's going on. And I started hearing the stories, right? And I've always been asking because I want to ask, but it's different because we haven't all been together in person for a while. And they're just, everybody's got all this stuff going on and it's heavy. And I said, look, let's spend the time talking about it. Whatever you need. You need help, you need someone to talk to, you need some time, whatever you need. I've been saying the same thing since COVID started, well, for a while now, but it was funny. It's like they just wanted to talk. And I brought that same conversation when all the salespeople showed up in the sales meeting and said, let's just talk about what's been going on and how you guys feel. Now, I felt like I've been doing that on Zoom for the last 2 years,
Right.
but it doesn't translate the same, right? Seeing them in person. And the feedback I got after the meetings was that the best part of both those days of meetings was the conversation about mental health. The open conversation about mental health, where they were all able to share, well, I've been feeling this way, or I've been feeling that way, and feeling like it was okay to talk about it. And it wasn't taboo to talk about it.
Right. And that's a tricky thing. Yeah. I was just going to observe that, when you talk about kind of you in the household kind of being Superman and not talking about those failures or getting close to bankruptcy, as a leader in an organization, your people might be thinking, gosh, I can't look like a softie in front of the boss. So you almost have to model that behavior for them. Is that right?
Well, they all know my story. So for me, I'm going to tell you, it's probably easier for me.
Yeah.
But they need to see that, the same vulnerability. It's just because I think we somehow, especially men my age, kind of match vulnerability up with weakness. And I don't think the two are the same. Because I can tell you now that I am a lot more vulnerable, I'm definitely not weak. No one would ever assume that because I'm the guy with my son, that I'm weak in any way. Because that's not how I show up every day, right? I still show up as a really tough guy, but I am more vulnerable than I used to be. And I think people respect that more, as opposed to the guy who always just acts like he's got his act together. And your family needs to see that. Your friends need to see that. Your spouse needs to see that. It's not a sign of weakness.
Yeah. So, I'm sure there's people listening who are kind of nodding their heads, to a lot of the stuff that you're saying. Where can people go to find more resources on this? I mean, I know, you mentioned the film before and chooselife.org as a website, but well, why don't you just talk about those properties for a little bit, the website as well as the film.
Look, if you want to learn more about the stuff I've done, if you go to chooselife.org and then go into more about Jay, there's a TEDx talk called the Hot Lava Talk that talks about the differences between us growing up and how Ryan grew up, the things I've learned along the way about for parents. There's a Goldcast I did to dads in Montreal, Quebec. They did a really good job on that. I think that's been seen like 8 or 9 million times by different people. And the film Tell My Story, which there's a link on the website. It's also tellmystoryfilm.com, or you just Google Tell My Story Film and it's going to pop up because it's on different sites. That's a good place if you want to sit and have a conversation with your kids. And a lot of people are doing this. They'll watch the movie with their kids. And that'll spark a conversation about mental health. Because it's me interviewing parents, talking to kids that have gone through this, and just trying to find out what happened. And not necessarily what happened to Ryan, but what's happening to kids today. And that's a great tool, and that's why I did the movie, where you can learn, spark a conversation. Now, in terms of other stuff on the internet, I wish I could say if you just go here, it's going to solve all your problems. I'm definitely talking to lots of people who are building different things that they hope to solve the problems. There's actually a lot of VC money going into this space to try and build out tools for parents and for around anxiety, depression, and everything else. Nothing I'm going to say right now if you just go here, but if you Google anxiety, depression, kids, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff you can look at that'll hopefully help you. I just don't have anything I'm going to fully recommend at this point in time.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jay Reid, thank you so much for spending some time chatting with me and talking to the audience about your story, as well as how we can do a better job at addressing anxiety and depression, and not just kids, but really in all of us.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Mike, and I wish everybody the best.